Well, I hope you truly enjoyed your time here these last 6, 7, 8 days now. We've been here truly rejoicing. I hope you got a lot of sleep. Last night was my best sleep night. I have a score. My watch tells me that I slept well. Of course, I can't do anything without technology. I have to have the technology tell me how well I slept. Right? And that changes my mood as soon as I get up. Oh, sleep score, isn't that almost 90? Woo! I'm feeling good today. I don't know why we do it, but we do. We're trapped by this technology in this world, but we know things are going to be very different. Here we are on this very, very special Sabbath for all of us, truly. Most who truly come to understand what this day pictures cannot help but feel this absolute sense of relief that comes over each one of us. Complete content about God and His perfect plan for mankind. It is a day that explains so many questions that we have. If you were called out of the world, many of us grew up in the church, but if you were called out of the world, many times this is the day that really hooks people in the plan of salvation, in God's plan of salvation for mankind. I remember, my dad who's now deceased, I believe he's awaiting the first resurrection. He was converted. He's in the church a long time. He's been dead for a few years now. But this, when he was called, I remember him telling me that this was his absolute favorite holy day. And for many of us, that's the case, because what we come to see in this holy day is that God is absolutely fair, absolutely just. We see that. It's evidenced by this holy day. So let's look at why we are here. Leviticus 23. Let's talk about this separate day. Some groups even in the Church of God, have kind of melded this day into the feast and have lost some of the meaning with it. Well, we should never do that. Leviticus 23 and verse 39. We'll just look and why we're here. Leviticus 23, very familiar, verse 39. Also in the 15th day of the 7th month, when we have gathered in the fruit of the land, you shall keep a feast unto the eternal 7 days. On the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath. The 8th day, this is the 8th day. This is that Sabbath. This is a separate day, a very special Sabbath from the last 7 days, a day that means a little bit different, quite a bit different, a day that's filled with incredible hope, one that can make us all smile, right? A day where we think about loved ones. I think about those loved ones. I remember the very first time that I can remember going to a funeral. I think I went to a couple funerals beforehand, but in my mind, I can't recall them. But I remember going to my grandfather's funeral when I was young. I was preteen. And I remember that funeral so vividly because that's the first time I can remember just openly crying, wailing about his death. My grandfather lived quite a ways away. I didn't see him very often. This is when I lived in Canada. We lived in the eastern part of the nation, near the nation's capital. And my grandparents were up in Edmonton, Alberta, so quite a distance. And flights were expensive back then, so you didn't get there often. They spent a lot of time with us, and my dad and my mom, my family, and myself when I was young, and then we saw them sporadically. But I remember when he died, and that really stuck with me. I can never remember crying like that before that time, and I remember it now. And I'm sure we've all experienced that with our loved ones. We miss them. Despite now that we understand differently what's going to happen for them, what God's plan is for them, it still hurts when somebody dies, somebody that's very close to us dies. And I look forward to seeing him again. And when he died, I got a few things. And I actually had to buy shirts that had these cuffs because I got cufflinks from my grandfather. He was always, as my grandmother described him, a snappy dresser. He wore these shirts with cuffs, and he had the links. So I had to get some shirts with cuffs so I could wear the links. And I wear these links as a reminder to myself, just for me personally, that he's going to have a chance to know the truth. And that comforts me. It makes me happy. It takes away those tears that I remember so vividly having for my grandfather. I look forward to seeing him again. Turn to the book of John. We're still talking about this holy day, very different day. Trying to keep my voice muted. My wife said, "Stop yelling in the mic." I guess I get excited when I'm up here, and I maybe get too close to the mic, and I got a big voice sometimes, so I guess it gets amplified. A big room of people, I get more excited. What can I do? Book of John, chapter 7. After these things, Jesus walked in Galilee, for he would not walk in Jewry. Interesting choice of words. Because the Jews sought to kill him. Now the Jews' Feast of Tabernacles was at hand. And we don't have to read this whole thing, but let's just skip on down to a verse we're very familiar with. In verse 36, what manner of saying is this, that he said, "You shall seek me and shall not find me, and where I am, you cannot come." In the last day, that great day of the feast, Jesus stood and cried aloud, saying, "If any man thirst, let him come unto me and drink. And he that believes on me, as the scripture has said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living waters." If any man thirsts, let him come unto me on that great day, that last great day of the feast, that furthest, that final, that uttermost, that end day, that great day, that big day, that exceeding day, that mega day. These are all the words for great. That high day, that large day of the feast. And here we are on the last great day of the feast. Now I'm going to read something from Clark's commentary. Of course, we understand that we don't establish doctrine from commentaries, but sometimes they can be helpful and sometimes they point things out. For John 7:37, it was the 8th day and was called the Great Day because of a certain traditional observance, and not on account of any excellence which is derived from the original institution. Okay, this is where the commentator kind of lost it, right? Doesn't quite get it. On the 7 days, they professed to offer sacrifices for the 70 nations of the earth, but on the 8th day, they offered sacrifices for Israel. Therefore, the 8th day was more highly esteemed than any of the others. It was a ceremony at which the Jews testified the most joy was that of pouring out the water, which was done on the 8th day of the feast. A priest drew some water out of the pool of Siloam in a golden vessel and brought it into the temple at that time of the morning sacrifice. While the members of the sacrifice were on the altar, he went up and poured this water mingled with wine upon it, and the people all the while singing with passages of joy, especially Isaiah 12:6 it lists, "With joy shall you draw water out of the wells of salvation." So this is the traditional kind of keeping of this day. Now we're not going to read too much into this commentary, but today there are, you probably heard, and if you haven't, there are Jews celebrating over in Israel right now. They're having a wonderful celebration, right? Because hostages were released. It's making this day very extra special. And if you recall 2 years ago, on this day, those who were not actually keeping this day were terrorized, right? And now some of the hostages, the living hostages, the very few living hostages, a few, I think 20 hostages were released, and they're excited about it. They call this day Shemini Atzeret. If I pronounced that correctly, I'm not quite sure. Which includes a prayer for rain, and then just like they always do, they do it for the Feast of Trumpets, or Rosh Hashanah, right? They have 2 days for that because they hedge their bets around it. They have to make sure they do that. It's their 40 minus 1 with their lashes. Everything else, they have 2 days. And they celebrate this extra day called the Shimchat Torah, which is tomorrow. It's a celebratory Jewish holiday that marks the completion of the annual Torah reading, and they rejoice in the law, and they do this by singing, dancing, and drinking liquor during their worship. It'd be very interesting if we followed that, if God commanded us to drink liquor during worship. It'd be really interesting, in fact. But that's what they say. It's a truly joyous feast. Turn to Zechariah 4. That's not what we're here to do. Just kind of still setting everything up as we get into it. Zechariah 4. And we'll pick it up in verse 10. For who has despised the day of small things? We don't need to read the rest of the verse, but it says, for they shall rejoice and see the plummet in the hand of Zerubbabel, and so on and so forth. Who has despised the day of small things? See, God cautions us not even to despise the day of small things, which is really easy for us to do. So conversely, we really have to be paying attention to the day of big things. See, the Jews have their celebration, and it's a different type of celebration. They don't see the big picture. They don't know the plan of God. They keep these days, but they don't understand the big picture. They don't understand what this great, mega, huge, big, exceedingly large day has surrounding it. And we must know. We have to know. During this message, I'd like to take some time to help us continue. Yesterday, Mr. Fritz talked about expanding your mind, thinking bigger. To continue to think big on this great day and all the types of things associated, the big things associated with this day, to get the picture clear in our mind. We can never minimize its importance. All right, let's start out by going to the back of the book, Revelation 20. Revelation 20. I know there's another message this afternoon, so we're going to have some duplicate scriptures, I'm sure, but we're not going to cover them in the same way, that's for sure. At least that's my hope. First big event, Revelation 20, and verse 3. And you'll see where I'm going with this. And this is the devil and Satan. He's bound for 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal on him, that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed for a little season. So yesterday, many of us, we have a condo that's right by the beach. We figured we were going to come here. We don't get to come to nice beaches that often. We're going to sacrifice a little bit and get the condo right on the beach. And it's facing southwest, and it's beautiful. We get the sunset. So my wife is out there on the beach watching the sunset. I'm up on the balcony taking panoramic pictures of the sunset. Probably never that my wife will ever use because I'm not a very good photographer. But I still did it anyway. And I enjoyed the sunset as it came in because the sunset marked the beginning of this day. See, there's no break between the 7 days of the Feast of Tabernacles, which pictures the millennium, the 1,000-year reign of Jesus Christ and the saints. And then right here it says, and after the 1,000 years were finished, the devil's loosed for a little season. We don't even know what that is. We don't know how long that is. We don't know. Go down to verse 7. And when the 1,000 years were expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison. So I'm kind of picturing this is going through my mind right when the sun is set, because it's right after the 1,000 years. And he shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, just describing a massive peoples, to gather them together to battle. What? We don't cover that often. We don't think about it that often. The number of whom is of the sand of the sea. And, when the sun was setting, I'm looking out there and I'm thinking, how many sand grains am I looking at this large beach? And at the end of 1,000 years, even though it's a small period of time, this is no small event. The devil is loosed again for some little season, and he gathers millions and millions and maybe billion, I don't know, people. How many sand grains are there? I know it's a descriptive term used to describe a great and exceedingly large army, but I don't know what that means. Right at the end of a period of peace, where God beings, by the millions, have been ruling, have been dispensing knowledge. After 1,000 years, we would think all of that knowledge is complete, yet the devil's loose for a little season. What happens with us? I don't know. The Bible's not clear on it. Do we sort of stand down and watch it happen? God says it's going to happen, so we have to let it happen. It's going to happen. I don't understand. I'm not quite sure. We'll know when we get there exactly what needs to be done. But this is a big event. A whole bunch of people seemingly openly rejecting what God has taught them for as long as they've lived on this earth. It's unbelievable. That's a big event. We'll cover a little bit more of this a little bit later. Revelation 20, we're still there. We'll keep going. And they went up on the breadth of the earth and compassed the camp of the saints and the beloved city, and fire came down from God out of heaven and devoured them. And the devil, and this is another thing, the devil that deceived them was cast into a lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet, most of your Bibles have this italics that says are, it's were, because the beast and the false prophet are human beings. They were burned up in a lake of fire. They're not there in hell tormented like Dante has taught the rest of the world. They were there, okay, where the devil and the false, or where the beast and the false prophet were, and shall be tormented day and night forever. The devil's a spirit being. He cannot die, but he is going to be put there forever. Not just 1,000 years, but forever. That's a huge event. Coming off the heels of what he had just done. Think about it. Given such a short little season, he's able to deceive however many people he deceives to go and make war again. That's a huge event. That's a huge event. And these all happen kind of right at the beginning. I kind of picture it like in a 24-hour day, like right when the sun is set and you can still have a little bit of light out. This is all happening. This is what's going on. 1,000 years is over. The Jews, both ancient and modern, really have never fully understood the ultimate plan of God this way. Revelation was written well after by the Apostle John. Christ gave it from God to John, to his servants, to show them the things that must shortly come to pass. We understand that. They've never fully understood the ultimate plan of God and the final redemption between themselves and God. They even, today, the Jews think they're all every Israelite tribe, right? They think all the Israelite tribes are in Israel right now. They fail to understand that they're Judah, and maybe with a little bit of Levi and Simeon in there, Benjamin, but they fail to recognize that. Romans 11. Okay, those are two big events. We're just going to go through some of these big events because I want to try and expand your mind to think about these big events and get us thinking about what this day pictures. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot going on that surrounds this day, this one single great day. Romans 11 and verse 26. It says, "And so Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. For this is my covenant unto them, when I shall take away their sins. As concerning the gospel, they are enemies for your sakes, but as touching the election, they are beloved for the Father's sake. For the gifts and calling of God are without repentance. For as you in times past have not believed God, yet have now obtained mercy through their unbelief, even so have these also now not believed, that through your mercy they also may obtain mercy. For God has concluded them in unbelief, that he might have mercy upon all. Oh, the depths of the riches, both of the wisdom and knowledge of God! How unsearchable are his judgments, and his ways past finding out." He wants to have mercy upon all. Now, I understand, and we understand, that during the millennium, those Israelites that are preserved, God will open up his Spirit. They will be saved. They will understand the truth. They will have access to be eternally saved. They'll be physically saved first and eternally saved later. They'll have access to this. But it's even greater after the millennium. It's even greater in a much bigger way. Ephesians 3. We'll talk about that a little bit. Ephesians 3. And verse 16, "That he would grant you, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with might by his Spirit in the inner man." They're going to have this opportunity. "That Christ may dwell in your hearts by faith, that ye, being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth, the length, the depth, and the height, and to know the love of Christ, which passes knowledge, that you might be filled with the fullness of God." To know the length, the breadth, the depth, and the height of what God is doing, they will have an opportunity. This is part of that length and breadth and height of what God is doing. Israel is going to have a great opportunity. Turn to the book of Ezekiel. We'll cover a few scriptures, not in depth, but we're just going to look at it quickly to prove the point. Ezekiel 37. You all know this, and I'm sure it will be discussed a little bit more in depth this afternoon. Ezekiel 37, verse 1, "The hand of the Eternal was upon me, and carried me out in the Spirit of the Lord, and set me down in the midst of the valley which was full of bones, and caused me to pass by them round about. And behold, there were very many in the open valley, and lo, they were very dry." And just skip on down to verse 10. "So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came into them, and they lived, and they stood up on their feet, an exceeding great army." Another great event. "And then he said unto me, Son of man, these bones are the whole, the entire house of Israel. Behold," they say, "our bones are dried, and our hope is lost. We are cut off for our parts." The whole house of Israel. This valley of exceeding many dry bones. This is where Israel truly comes back and gets the opportunity. The way that God had planned from the very beginning. He wanted them to have this opportunity throughout their generations. He wanted them to know the truth. He gave them his laws. He gave them his statutes. He gave them his judgments. He gave them priests to minister to them. We heard yesterday, he gave them a tabernacle. His presence was there. And yet now they get their final and first real good opportunity. Right? Think of how many people, many of us in this room, especially in the United States, or those from Canada, Britain, those Israelite nations, have loved ones who will come up. Those loved ones are part of, if they're Israelite, part of the whole house of Israel coming up. Think of how many Israelites have lived throughout the ages. Go back and think in your mind. How many? They'll get a chance to live God's way of life. How many people are you able to maintain a significant social contact with at any one time? Let's just think this through. Answer. Okay, this has been studied. 150 people. It's called the Dunbar number. Really able to manage a significant social contact with about 150 people. They've been measuring this for years. How many people have you met in your lifetime? And by met, it means defined as a face-to-face contact with a clear and momentary recognition. So you just, a face-to-face contact, hello, maybe my name is, or you don't remember the name, but you look at them. Some people are way better with names than faces, and some people are way better with faces than names, right? There are a lot of social factors, including your occupation, the country you live in, population density of the city versus the rural areas we may live in, and how long we live, 60 years versus 90 years. So there's a lot of factors that play in here. However, it has been surmised that if you met, let's say, 2 people a day, and lived for 75 years, you will have met almost 55,000 people. Some people say between, I guess depending on how social you are, and Mr. Russon's got the gift of the gab, so maybe he's got 100,000 people that he's met. I'm not sure. But those who may be a little bit more introverted may be meeting less than 50,000 people. But still, that's a large number, right? It's a large number. How many people have been alive in Israel? How many people that are in this room that live in the modern nations of Israel have you met? How many Israelites, quote unquote, have you and I met over the course of our life? And how many of them are sitting beside you? Right? Ask yourself that. How many are coming up? How many people? How great is this resurrection? How awesome is this for all of us? Luke, the 15th chapter. Let's go there. Luke 15. You know, I had the opportunity to travel years ago and to go into South America. I went into Peru, and I went to Lima, Peru, and they have a cathedral there. It's a Catholic cathedral, of course, but it's called San Francisco. During the Spanish Inquisition, it was pretty much a headquarters down there. And I went to the catacombs. You get a tour, right? And you go to the catacombs, and it was kind of shocking because what they would show you is, here's a pit, and here's another big pit, about 40 feet by 40 feet, and about 40 feet deep. This is where they would put the lie, and this is where they would put and then you turn to your right, and it's nothing but skulls. One after another, about 10 feet high, and about 40 feet long, and I'm not sure how deep it was. This is where they put the rest of the bones, over here in these pits of lye, so they could dissolve the bones. And, this is the atrocities that are done. But I just look, when I think about the Valley of Dry Bones, when I think about how many people are coming up, when I think about how many people have ever lived, how many people in Israel, how big of a day this is for them, I look at that picture in my mind of these skulls just stacked, still there, hundreds and hundreds of years old. I don't know how many there were. I couldn't count them. But it's just vivid. It sticks in my mind. I can never forget it. Luke 15 and verse 4. What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he lose one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after that which is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and his neighbors, saying unto them, Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost. I say unto you that likewise joy shall be in heaven over one sinner that repents, more than over the 99 just persons which need no repentance. Just think about that. All these people that are coming up, all these Israelites that get to come up, think about the immense joy when they come up and find out what life is really about, what the purpose of their existence really is, how they wasted their life and their first opportunity, those that had an opportunity, how they were living for something that had no future, how they were fooled, how they were duped, how they were lied to, confused, how they treated those people, perhaps that knew about it, with disdain, how they didn't enjoy their presence, how they snubbed certain people. Yet they're going to have a chance to know the truth. They're going to change. They're going to repent. They're going to go the other way because the earth is going to be full of the knowledge of the eternal. It's going to be a time very similar to the millennium. As the waters cover the sea. They're going to have an awesome opportunity. They're going to have abundance. They're going to see it. There's going to be God beings, hopefully us, and more, there to help them. That's got to be exciting. That's got to be inspiring to us. Satan the devil, gone. Such joy. Jeremiah 31. A time of great joy. A time where they get to experience what we now have. Jeremiah 31 and in verse 33. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says the Eternal. I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts. This happens during the millennium, but it's very similar. They get the opportunity during this time that they've been resurrected to physical life for the short period that they have. God will complete His law by putting it in them because they're the last generation of human beings in His plan, as far as we know at this point in His 7,000-year plan. Think of the way, go back to Israel, they're celebrating, they're excited, the Jews are excited about their hostage release, but they're celebrating a holy day of a different sort. Very, very different sort. They're celebrating the finishing of the law, the complete of the Torah. They have yet no real clue and idea that we do. They do not know. Little do they know that they're going to be included in this vast majority of people that we're reading about and that I'm talking about today. And they're going to wake up and they're going to go, what was I doing? Why was I drinking liquor and being joyous at the reading of a book? Boy, I spent my whole life doing this. I had no idea what I was doing. Now they're finally going to know. But this feast day is not just about Israel, is it? 1 Timothy 2. 1 Timothy 2. These are big things. I'm not going to cover all of them, but they are big things. We're talking about the big things on this very big day, this exceedingly large, huge, exciting day. 1 Timothy chapter 2 and verse 4. Talking about God who will have all men to be saved and to come unto the knowledge of the truth. It's not just Israel. It's not just those who are Israelite born, come from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's not that. That's not it. God has a plan for all mankind. Ezekiel is simply just a type. So how many people have ever lived? How many people have ever lived? I know there's a lot of figures that go out there. There's this one place, it's called the Population Reference Bureau. And they go back, and they use evolutionary type thinking because they go back to 50,000 BC, and they calculate all the people who have ever lived. And it doesn't even account for the flood. And they say that's about 108 billion people or 110 billion people who have ever lived. So I went back and I kind of tried to apply some biblical knowledge to it and go back close to 4,000 years. Church has long taught 3981 BC. That's in a lot of the literature. And then the flood, 1656 years later. How many people lived during that time? We were having an interesting discussion with a couple yesterday out at lunch. And, everybody lived 900 years or 800 years. I don't even know what that's like. I mean, you just never get married until you're 100, okay? You're too young. Like, don't get married till you're 100. You don't want to do that. You want to live your life. I don't know. Because the Bible records, it tells us a few of the children that they had, and it says, when he was 120, he begat so-and-so. When he was 130, he begat so-and-so. Was there any begetting beforehand? I don't know. Was there any begetting afterwards? Probably. We don't know how many children exactly Adam and Eve had. We know a few of them. But it says, and they had more sons and daughters. It says that, but it doesn't say how many. When you live for 900 plus years, how many kids do you want? I don't know. I mean, if you wait until you're, let's be reasonable. Let's just wait till you're 50 before you have your first child. Maybe that's reasonable. I don't know. And how many kids do you have? 50? 100? I mean, when does your wife just say, enough is enough? Yeah, these past 250 years I've been pregnant. I'm sick and tired of changing diapers. I want to live my life now. Let me live the last 500 years of my life in peace, okay? This has been a struggle. I don't know how to frame it. I don't know how to picture that. I don't know how many kids there are. But let's just use a round number, right? Let's just use a round number. Let's just say there were 300 million people in 656 years. If it's 500 million or if it's a billion, it's not going to massively affect the overall numbers. Then you wipe them all out. The flood comes and wipes out everybody but 8 people. Right? 8 people come out. And after the flood, there's some pretty decent figures out there that they estimate around AD 1, there was about 300 million people on the earth. And in that period of time, an estimate of about 1 billion people had died. So you do this calculation of how many people there are living, and then what their growth rates are, and then what their death rates are, and then you travel it all the way down to 2025. In 2025, right now, there's approximately 8.25 billion people on the planet living. And if you total up all the numbers of those living and dead, and you look at the Dark Ages, where the plague and everything wiped out a whole bunch of people and everything else, you get to this number that's actually fairly close to that estimate of about 108 billion people. And you'll kind of have to trust my math on this. I kind of made some assumptions and played around, but it's about 93 billion people that have ever lived. Now, I could be grossly off. Who knows? I'll learn afterwards how many babies people had before the flood. That'd be an interesting discussion, won't it? It'd be a really interesting discussion, too, for those people that come up. Right? Think about all those people that live till they're 900 years old when they come up and they go, what? I got 100 years? I can do anything in 100 years. Like I lived for 900 years. You understand? 100 years is a very short time for me. Most of us, whew, man, if I lived for 100 years, that'd be awesome. And you're thinking, man, I can't get anything done. I can barely get out of bed, But 93 billion people. And think about the people that are on the planet today. About 8.25 billion. That's about 9% of the population who have ever lived. Let's just say, hypothetical. 9% of the population who have ever lived are on the planet today. This does not even account for the countless miscarriages that people have had over the years. And I know there's several in this room. Miscarriages, stillbirths. Many people have suffered that. I know my wife and I did. I'm looking forward to the day when I get to meet that child. I know there's a lot of nodding heads out here. There's a lot of us that are looking forward to that day. Not to mention the 1.5 billion abortions that have happened since 1980. 1.5 billion. That's disgusting. But those are going to have a chance to come up. And those parents, likely, who allowed that to happen, are going to find out they got a big job to do during 100 years, aren't they? That's a lot of diapers. But you're going to learn, and you're going to do it. And we're going to help them. John 5. That's a lot of people. Just think about how big that is. Multiply every human being on earth today by a factor of 11, and that's how many people may be up. John 5. Think that through. It's hard to even wrap your mind around the huge numbers that we're talking about. John 5. John 5 and verse 28. It says, "Marvel not at this, for the hour is coming in the which all that are in the grave shall hear his voice, and shall come forth, and they that have done good unto the resurrection of life, and they that have done evil unto the resurrection of damnation," or the resurrection of judgment. The resurrection of judgment. And you don't have to turn there, but you can write it down in Revelation 20, verse 11. It says, "And I saw a great white throne." A great white throne. Revelation 20, verse 11. Turn to the book of Revelation, actually, anyway. Go to Revelation 20 and go to verse 13. I think this is something else to expand our minds and help us think about this day. Revelation 20 and verse 13. Revelation 20 and verse 13, it says, "And the sea gave up the dead that were in it, and death and Hades, or hell, delivered up the dead which were in them. And they were judged, every man according to their works." Look outside your balcony if you have a chance. Look at the water later on today. Look at how vast of an expanse that is. I know a lot of people take this day, maybe I've heard from many people, they get up in the morning early and they drive by a graveyard or something like that, just to get their minds in the right place, to look at all the people that are, all the stones that are there, to think about how many people are coming up. But look outside at the ocean. How many people has the ocean swallowed up? First of all, there's the flood, the great flood, right? How many people were swallowed up? Who knows if my numbers were even close? And how many people since? Those in World War II, those in World War I, those in any other war, those travelers, those people just fishing, those people just out for a nice outing, those people that went to the beach and somebody swam out too far. All those people, how many? Everyone resurrected to a life different than their former one, different than what they're used to, different than anything they've ever known or seen. And we're going to be there to help them if we're ready. We're going to have had practice for 1,000 years, and that's what it's all for. 1,000 years of practice, 1,000 years of preparation, 1,000 years of getting ready for the big haul, right? The big, gigantic, enormous, mega haul. That second resurrection. Isaiah 65. Isaiah 65. And verse 20. Isaiah 65:20. There shall be no more hence an infant of days, nor old man that has not filled his days. For the child shall die 100 years old. But the sinner being 100 years old shall be accursed. So, that's the only indication of the time length of the great white throne judgment period, this second resurrection period, possibly 100 years. And what's it going to be like? And they shall build houses and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them. They shall not build and another inhabit, they shall not plant and another eat, for as the days of a tree are the days of my people, and my elect shall long enjoy the work of their hands. And it goes on and says in verse 25, and the wolf and the lamb shall feed together, and the lion shall eat straw like the bullock, and dust shall be the serpent's meat, and they shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain. A time period exactly similar to the last 1,000 years, but way more condensed with way more people. 1/10 the time with 10 times the people, perhaps, all at once. It's huge, but it's surely coming. It's absolutely coming. Luke 16. Who wouldn't want this way of life, right? Who wouldn't want the superabundance? Who wouldn't want to know where that came from? Who wouldn't want to be a part of it? Who wouldn't want to experience that for eternity? Who wouldn't want to be a part of the big plan? Some. Luke 16 and verse 26. Or verse 25. Let's pick it up. Actually, let's go back a few verses. Verse 19. And there was a certain rich man which was clothed in purple and fine linen, and fared sumptuously every day. And there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, which was laid up at the gate, full of sores, and desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell at the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. And it came to pass that the beggar died and was carried by the angels into Abraham's bosom. And the rich man also died, and he was buried. And in the grave he lifted up his eyes, being in torments, and seeing Abraham afar off, and Lazarus in his bosom. And he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me, and send Lazarus, that he may dip the tip of his finger in water, and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that you, in your lifetime, received your good things, and likewise Lazarus, evil things. But now is he comforted, and you are tormented. And besides all this, between us there is a great gulf fixed. Something else great. So that they which would not pass from hence, you cannot pass. Neither can they pass to us. So you can't get there, they can't get here. And he said, I pray you therefore, Father, that you would send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brethren, that he may testify to them, lest they also come into this place of torment. I don't want my family feeling this. And Abraham said unto them, they have Moses and the prophets, let them hear. And he said, no, No, Father Abraham, but if one went unto them from the dead, they will repent. And he said unto them, if they don't hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rose from the dead. There are people that will choose, and this is the part of the day that we hope is small. Really, really, really small. God's not in the losing business. He would have all men to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. He's not willing that any should perish, but some are willing to perish. God's not willing, but some are. And we really hope that that is a small amount. Back to Revelation 20. We talked about it earlier, but you wonder, the Bible's not completely clear on this, but you wonder what goes on in the minds of those that are deceived when the devil is loose for a short season after having tasted of good, after having been trained by God beings and had access to the Holy Spirit. The number is as sand of the sea. I hope there's so many that were not, didn't quite get it, but the devil deceives them to go and make war, and then the fire of God comes and consumes them. And I hope that that's not a huge number that end up in this final situation, that great gulf fixed. And I hope, it is my hope that they are not. But it is a huge thing. It's God's final great act of mercy. Psalm 57. Everything about this day is great. There's so much packed into it, around it. It's primarily about finishing the plan of salvation for mankind, the great white throne judgment. That's what it primarily means, but there's so many other events that are tacked onto the sides of it. They're huge. Psalm 57. And verse 10. For your mercy is great unto the heavens, and your truth unto the clouds. God's mercy is so great. It's hard to think that coming up and having to rid the earth of those who are not wanting to believe the truth, not wanting to live the truth, who despise the truth, who will not submit to the truth, who will not allow Jesus Christ and God to reign over them, are going to have to perish. But they'll perish forever. And there'll be no more memory of them. And as Malachi says, there'll be ashes under the soles of our feet. It's sad, but this has to be. This is God's final act of mercy towards mankind. Revelation 21. And immediately after that, it would seem, I wouldn't imagine God wants to waste any time. Let's go to Revelation 20, verse 14 and 15 to set the time frame. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. We just talked about that. And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire, and that's God's final act of mercy. And then, does not seem like any time has elapsed. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away. They were gone. And there was no more sea. And I, John, saw a holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of the heavens saying, Behold, the tabernacle, the dwelling place of God, finally, is with men. And he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. Amazing. God who cannot dwell with sin, he cannot dwell with any of this. He has to cleanse the earth. He has to melt the elements with fervent heat, as Peter said. Right? Recorded. God said it, Peter recorded it. With fervent heat. And then once it's cleansed, a new heaven and a new earth can begin. So as the sun starts to set this evening, start thinking about these things. Start thinking about this. Think about it now. And God shall wipe away all the tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death. Death is done. No more sorrow, no crying. Neither shall there be any more pain. No crying, no death, no sorrow, no pain anymore, for the former things are passed away. What an amazing time that is. What an amazing time this pictures. A new heaven and a new earth. You know, we look at the earth around us in this beautiful setting and we think it's going to get even more beautiful in the millennium. And it will. It will be a utopia. But what's the new heaven and new earth going to be like? What's that going to be like? Down to verse 10. And he carried me away in the Spirit to another great thing, and high mountain, and showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God, having the glory of God, and her light was like unto a stone, most precious, even like jasper, and clear as crystal. And had a great wall, a wall great and high, and had 12 gates. And at the gates 12 angels, and the names written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of Israel. So this awesome city, this mega city, one of immense proportions, one of immense sizes. Skip down to verse 15. And he talked with me, and had a golden reed to measure the city, and the gates thereof, and the walls thereof. And the city lies foursquare, and the length of it is as large as the breadth. And the measure of the city with the reed was 12,000 furlongs. The length and the breadth of the height are equal. The length, the breadth, and the height of this city are equal. It's amazing. Just think about this. Furlongs. 1 furlong is 220 yards, or 660 feet. The Greek word for furlong is stadion, after the ancient stadium in Athens, which is a little over 697 feet. This foursquare city is at least, and by these calculations, 1,500 miles wide, 1,500 miles long, and 1,500 miles high. This new heavens and new earth is going to have a new Jerusalem that is huge. This city is a little over 71% of the land area of the lower 48 states. So about 3/4 of the land area of the lower 48 states. You know, from New York to Omaha and from Minneapolis to Corpus Christi squared. Think about that. That's an immense, awesome city. This is where the God who we pray to is going to dwell. This is where what he's going to bring down. And this is where he's going to dwell, and we're going to dwell there with him, if we qualify. This is gigantic. The height of the city is approximately 1/5 of the entire diameter or thickness of the earth. Put it another way, if it was a cube, just think about it. The New Jerusalem is about 86% of the entire volume of the earth's moon. So it's like the moon just stuck on the ball, right? Like think about, you go home and build yourself take your basketball or a volleyball and take some Lego if you have some, or borrow some from somebody else, or maybe ask for a late feast gift or something. Make some Lego, put it together and stick it on the ball so you understand the size of what this city looks like. It's like a moon landing on the earth. It's amazing. I'm going to read you something from Good News in 1981, January 1981. What does this great city look like? It defies human imagination. Containing the glory of God and illuminating like a jasper stone, it glows in deep, rich blue-green tones with the transparency of crystal. The walls have 12 gates and the names of the tribes of Israel written on them. The angel who measures the city, skipping on down, gives its dimensions. Talk about New Jerusalem, 1,500 miles in length, breadth, and height. Though the shape of the city is not clearly revealed, it apparently forms a cube, and this is certainly in keeping with the holiest of all. That is, a section of the tabernacle and later the temple represented the throne room of God. It was there that God manifested himself, and God's going to manifest himself, the Father. Another possibility, it says, is the city is shaped like a pyramid, with God, the Father, and Christ appearing in the apex. The pyramidal structure is unique architecturally. The design may have originally come from God himself. Other spirit beings may occupy areas of lower heights, depending on their status. Whatever the shape, New Jerusalem is a huge city. A spectacular example of God's handiwork is that the city itself is made of gold and appears as clear glass. Revelation 21 and verse 18. You know, it's interesting. Is it a cube? Is it a pyramid? I don't know. We're going to find out. Let's hope. There's some indication it could be a pyramid. Some indication that God actually inspired the pyramids. The first great pyramid, churches had an article, Cheops or Job was the designer and builder, the master builder of that potentially great pyramid. There's an article. Whether or not, it looks like it could very well be. Whatever the case may be, this is going to be incredibly huge. And then what? And then what? Isaiah 9. Isaiah 9. Isaiah 9 and verse 7. This city comes down. All of humanity has now been either changed to spirit, part of the family of God, an immense family of maybe 93 billion, 100 billion, how many come up in the millennium? Don't know. God beings on a new heavens and a new earth with a great city planted there. Isaiah 9 and verse 7. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with justice and judgment, and henceforth forevermore the zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. The increase of his government and peace, there will be no end. There will be no end. From this brand new, enormous city of peace, New Jerusalem, vast billions will be changed. And we will begin to rule. Really begin to rule. So what I'd like to show you now is a short little video. I wanted to show you a different one because there's really great ones out there, but the copyright laws won't allow it. But this one doesn't have any copyright restrictions. It's a short 2-minute video that outlines a few things. It's from the Sloan Digital survey, and this data set goes back about 12 years, and it shows you in the most updated, there are 1.5 million galaxies in our current knowledge of the universe. There are 228,000 quasars, which is a gas disk that gets very, very close to a black hole. It's hard to fathom what all this is. 668,000 random stars in this video alone. Okay, so I guess we can run the video and just watch as you flow through the universe. Maybe we could get the lights. There we go. Let there be light. There was. That's good. All right. I hope you let your mind expand as you saw what God has in store for us. This day, this last great day, is a truly mega day in God's plan. It's so awesome to think about all those coming up, about all the things that this day pictures. But in the end, this day is over and will be over. All of God's plan will be complete. And then we get busy in the beginning.
For more information, go to our website at cogassembly.org. Copyright 2025, Church of God Assembly. All rights reserved.